Okay. He, you know he's in trouble here because he could have moved his knight or his queen, and he chooses to move his king, which he kind of had to do because all I have to do is get my queen out and get her active, and he's going to be in real trouble here. So that's why he moved his king to try to get into a defensive position here. I'm getting my king out of the way as well. Once again, I'm getting it towards the center of the board because I realize there's going to be an exchange of queens here, and I want my king up there in the center, able to go whichever direction he needs to defend his pieces and act as an offensive player as we reach the end game here. And now he's just moving his king around. These are strategic moves for him. At this point, I'm like, okay, my king's in the center of the board. Let's go ahead and do the queen exchange. He's pretty much got to take it now. He does. Notice how I capture back from this side of the board, and now I have a nice little pawn chain going right here. A little ugly, but they are all connected. And that's key too, because especially when he's down a pawn right now, that's really not good for him. And also his pawns are in front of all of my pawns. For instance, he doesn't have any pawn out here on the H file which he could try to run down on me. So that's good. His moves are very limited now. So now we can focus our attention back over to this other side of the board. Now, ever since he moved that knight over to the edge of the board, it's pretty much been doing nothing. And you can see that whole time that bishop had been threatening this F2 square and preventing that queen who was sitting over here on E2 from moving up here to E3, which would have helped her at that time. Now, it was still, that bishop was still active. It couldn't move around a lot, but he never chose to take it with that knight because he would have lost the tempo. And he likes, the one good thing about this position here is that he has the choice at any moment to take that bishop whenever it's right for him. And that's why he hasn't done it yet, because it just wasn't quite right for him. That bishop never could really help me out too much, and as you can see, that pawn is still there on F2. It did hamper him a little. It hampered the movement of his queen, and it was doing a number of other things there. He couldn't really move this knight ever. So the knight was basically a passive player this whole time, whereas my bishop was an active bishop along that diagonal. So I gained an advantage with that when he made that move, and that probably turned the tide of the game, honestly. Okay, he moves his king up. He obviously wants to keep it as close to my pawns as possible, and he wants to prevent my king from getting in here and getting closer to his pawns. So that's why he's doing that. Okay, let's see here. I move my A pawn up too. It didn't really matter because if he takes my bishop, I can still capture it back with the C pawn, and it doesn't really matter now. Me keeping these doubled up pawns, which is ironic that I would even want to do that, but that it doesn't matter now. So I want my my A pawn to be as far up as possible, because once he starts developing these pawns, that's going to become critical. So I wanted that up there, and I don't actually have a lot of moves right now with my king or any of my other pawns, so I have to be very careful which moves I play. So I think that was the best move there. Now he's moving his king around. He's kind of hoping for me to make a bad move at this point. I'm developing my pawns in the center. He moves back. I'm not sure what I did wrong here, if I even did anything wrong, but you can see that this one center square is a very key square, because whichever king is on there, and obviously my king can't be, but his can, then he can control these two squares, these two light squares. So it's a battle of the light squares. And then my king basically has to stay in the back and protect this one pawn on the E file. So that's a tricky situation to handle. Now, there's a lot of things going on back here with this knight and this bishop. His knight's hanging loose there. You can see when I move this d pawn, now he can't even move up here to the c3 square. So no matter where his knight moves, here, here, or here, the only three places it can move, it can be captured. And now him being down a pawn, if he loses his knight, you know, even in exchange for a bishop, it's not going to be good for him. So now my goal here is to try to get his knight. He wasn't taking my bishop, which I left out there hoping he would take. So now I'm thinking at this point when I'm moving it back here that I'm probably going to have to try to activate my bishop, and I'm going to have to move these pawns up, these doubled up pawns, get over and try to bring it up here to defend this e5 pawn.